It's a pleasure to participate here today, even if it's only virtual. And it's a pity we couldn't meet in person under the sun of Cape Town and enjoy the famous South African hospitality. But I'm convinced that this event will nonetheless be a success, as it really deserves to be. Africa Energy Indaba is the ideal setting for the European Union and our African partners to discuss together the most pressing energy issues that affect both of our continents. I'm pleased that it's also the aim of today's Team Europe Energy Day. South Africa is the European Union's largest trading partner in Africa, and 40% of investments in renewable energy here comes from the European Union. Investment in sustainable energy projects is at the heart of our cooperation in Africa, and over the past 7 years, the EU has provided €3 billion of support to help build infrastructure for sustainable energy systems across the continent. For example, we are working closely with the African Union to develop the African Single Electricity Market, which helps to reinforce Africa's energy security as part of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. And last year, under South Africa's leadership of the African Union, we committed to stepping up our partnership with Africa. And today, together, we are identifying joint priorities ahead of the EU-Africa Summit later this year. One of the priorities identified is the transition to cleaner sources of energy. Africa is responding to a growing demand for a secure, affordable, and sustainable energy system. In doing so, Africa could meet about a quarter of its energy needs from indigenous and clean renewable energy already by 2030. And research shows that by doubling the share of renewables by 2030, we could increase global GDP by up to 1.1%. The cost of clean energy technologies is falling, and at the same time, renewable energy sources like solar, photovoltaic, solar power, and onshore wind are rising, but unevenly across the continent. I've heard a number of really impressive and interesting success stories. In Morocco, which has a target of 52% of electricity to come from renewables by 2030, the newer solar complex in Ouarzazate has become the biggest of its type in the world, achieving 580 gigawatts. And similarly for Egypt, with the giant solar park of Benban, which provides nearly 1.5 gigawatts to Egypt's national grid. It has brought down the price of solar energy at a time when the government is phasing out electricity subsidies. And of course, the Lake Turkana wind project in Kenya, Africa's largest wind energy project with 365 wind turbines, is expected to produce 300 megawatts of low-cost renewable energy for Kenya's national grid. At the same time, Africa attracts only 4% of global investments in energy and 2% of the world's investment in renewable energy. This has to change. The right regulatory framework is needed for investments to thrive and to create those all-important local jobs. It means making it easier to invest in renewable energy based on compatible, stable, and transparent rules across Africa. The EU is keen to support our African partners through a green energy initiative to boost the clean energy sector by leveraging private sector investment. The United Nations High-Level Dialogue on Energy and COP26 both take place later this year. That makes 2021 the year to show serious commitment to climate change and to the green energy transition. And at the same time, we need to get the Sustainable Development Goal on energy, the SDG 7, back on track and fast. The transition to clean energy is central to achieving climate neutrality, and yet it will have significant impact on societies, economies, and geopolitics globally. Not everyone will benefit at the same time, at the same speed, but we need to make sure that the benefits outweigh the drawbacks, and that no one is left behind in the process. In the EU, there are also regions that are economically dependent on legacy energy sources, and our member states are working at all levels of government to design policies to drive the necessary investment towards a just transition. I'm convinced that with international cooperation and exchange of good practices, we can narrow the differences and advance towards the net zero destination together. The European Union has a strong track record in reducing emissions of greenhouse gas while maintaining economic growth. In 2018, emissions were 23% lower than in 1990, while our GDP grew by 61% in the same period. So it's possible, but more needs to be done. And of course, we are now faced with the additional challenge of managing the COVID pandemic. For Europe, our European Green Deal has become our economic growth strategy. Through green economic growth, we aim to become carbon neutral by 2050 and significantly lower greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. This is underlined and supported by our recovery plan, which was adopted last year, which sets aside about a quarter of the European budget for climate-related initiatives. And we've rolled out a number of energy-related initiatives to help us meet our climate targets. We've announced a renovation wave to double the rate of renovation of buildings for energy efficiencies. This is important because buildings represent 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions. We look forward to hearing experiences of you, of African partners, that have adopted regulations and energy efficiency of buildings. We have adopted also strategies on offshore renewable energy. Renewable energy is now the #1 source of energy worldwide, and there's scope for taking it further. It's cost competitive, it creates jobs, both in Europe, but also here in Africa. And then we have adopted a hydrogen strategy that explores the scaling up of demand and supply of renewable hydrogen to help decarbonize our industry based on renewable electricity. So we very much look forward to the presentation today of the EU finance study of the South African Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. It explores the potential for South Africa to produce green hydrogen and to become an exporting nation of green hydrogen and chemicals. We already see a strong interest. So today's event is a valuable opportunity to strengthen our partnership as we transition towards cleaner energy, shoulder to shoulder, and towards addressing climate change. Thank you very much.